So if you guys did not go and check out my reaction to Conor McGregor retiring from the MMA, I don't know if he's just retired from the UFC. I said that he's going to get doing the GSP thing, walking away from the sport for a little while to take time off, adjust your lifestyle, see what's, there for the future. Conor McGregor has done a lot in the UFC in just a short, time with the promotion. Some people still think, it's still, a fiasco, that he's just, kidding around. But Ariel Helwani said, sources are true. He potentially is going to retire. He is going to retire. I don't know if it's going to be a short-term thing. He's only 27 years old. I still think there's still a whole lot in front of him. But that's for you guys to go and check out in our last video. Just click the last video before you guys click on this one. You guys can get my full reaction to that. So let's go in and talk about the actual card itself. What does it remain? What remains now? UFC 200. UFC 200 is going to end up being one of the biggest blockbuster cards I've ever seen. Right next to UFC 100. UFC 100 had a hell of a fight card. We saw Bisping. We saw Brock Lesnar. We saw a whole lot of competitors on that card. It was just an overall fantastic event. Thiago Alves, George St-Pierre. It was just an overall fantastic card. So let's see if 200 can top that. And 200 has already got a great build of fights. With Conor McGregor pulling out, Nate Diaz is left without a fight. He said that he retired. I honestly think that's complete bullshit. I think Nate Diaz is basically taking a shot there at Conor McGregor. He throughout their entire build up to their last fight. Nate Diaz was just a master at just getting underneath Conor McGregor's skin, but that didn't phase him. I know it phased him. But, like I said, it does leave, Nate Diaz without a fight. I think Nate Diaz is still going to be on from UFC 200. And, honestly, you don't know who's going to really to step up. Some people say it's going to be George St-Pierre coming in to take on Nate Diaz. Some people have said that, this has been, the biggest hot topic in the UFC for the last month before McGregor and Diaz was confirmed for it. Is it going to be Nate Diaz and George St-Pierre? George St-Pierre is still on good terms with the UFC, so everybody thought that George St-Pierre is coming back at UFC 200. I was hoping that he came back at UFC 200. This could be his opportunity to come back at UFC 200, but is he going to be ready to go? Is he, George St-Pierre had an interview that he's still in fighting shape. He still has a lot of time to really, get adjusted, get ready for the fight against Nate Diaz. The fight's on July 9th. So we're about 2 months out of the fight, and, you're given, almost about, 9-10 weeks to prepare for a fight. That is a lot of time. That's what Conor McGregor said before, coming over to the UFC. He was about to retire before coming to the UFC. It gave him 9 weeks to prepare for the fight for his UFC debut. Came into the UFC. It really took, the UFC by storm. So if George St-Pierre wants to take the fight, hopefully it's right there. Hopefully, Dana White, gets to him, and him and Sean Shelby get to George St-Pierre, and maybe something does come about it. But if that's to be, Nate Diaz, George St-Pierre could be a good headliner. I'll be all for it. So below that, this also comes back to Conor McGregor. What if Conor McGregor is retired? What do you do about the featherweight championship? You take the title from Conor McGregor. There's got to be, a legitimate featherweight champion. You just can't have a guy say he retired and all of a sudden you have a vacant champion. George St-Pierre, he decided to give up his welterweight championship after the Johnny Hendricks fight. So, this is what I planned. Featherweight championship fight. Jose Aldo versus Frankie Edgar. There you go. I know it's for the interim championship, but no more interim. Have it be for the legit actual featherweight championship. No interim. Conor McGregor's not fighting it. He's retired, remember? Let these two guys go after for the title. That is how you would do it. I would put Nate Diaz versus George St-Pierre and Jose Aldo versus Frankie Edgar for the UFC featherweight championship, not the interim championship. McGregor is out of the picture. And from there, you do have the rest of the card is stacked top to bottom. Like I said, you got Kat Zingano returning against Juliana Pena. You got Takanori Gomi returning against Jim Miller. Jim Miller needs to win big time. Sage Northcutt's going to be on the card. You got Diego Sanchez versus Joe Lozon. Gegard Mousasi versus Derek Brunson. Hendricks is back on the card against Kevin Gastelum. A lot of people are very critical on Kevin Gastelum's last fight. Cain Velasquez is returning. Cain Velasquez is trying to get back into the title picture. Travis Brown has really, risen up the actual UFC heavyweight, ladder. He's just right there. A victory against, Cain Velasquez could actually put Travis Brown in contention and possibly, could give him the #1 contendership. Both fighters are, top tier fighters in the heavyweight division. Everybody thought that Ben Rothwell was going to end up getting the title shot, but he took a step back in his latest loss. So I think, honestly, the loser could end up facing, Ben Rothwell. I think that this has a lot of, if on it. So Cain Velasquez wins, give him the title fight. Travis Brown wins, give him the title fight. So there's a lot of title implications going into that fight. And then you have Miesha Tate versus Amanda Nunes. I think that's going to be a great one. I still am in favor for that Holly Holm rematch. But honestly, I think Holly Holm really needs to get a fight or two on her belt. Kind of like what Dana White said about Rose Namajunas. I think Rose Namajunas has already, proven a whole lot. She already defeated Tecia Torres. She's already one of the top, women's strawweight competitors in the UFC. She already defeated her. So why not give her the title fight? Dana White does not think that she's ready right now. Maybe the next fight or two, she's able to pull up a victory. But who else is ready? Carla Esparza could be it. Have her and Rose Namajunas go at it. That could be, that could lead up to it. But that was just my example. But like I said, Miesha Tate versus Amanda Nunes is there, and rounding up the the rest of the card, you got Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar. Like I said, put that for the featherweight championship, not the interim belt. And then you have, hopefully, a Nate Diaz-George St-Pierre fight. I really want to see that. I think the UFC should try to get that and put that together, because I don't want to see Nate Diaz pull from the card. I don't believe Nate Diaz is retired. I know all you guys out there do not believe that Nate Diaz is retired. But hopefully this is the UFC's opportunity to get George St-Pierre back into the sport and potentially have George St-Pierre save the fight, save the main event. I don't want to see, some random just fighter being put in there. I want to see a legitimate matchup. I don't want to see a fighter take the Nate Diaz fight on like a week's notice, on a 2 weeks notice. I want to see this happen, get a legitimate camp together so we have a legitimate fight. So, hopefully George St. Pierre does take this fight. He has almost 2 months to prepare for it. So, why not? I think that's the best way that you would go about, the main event and the co-main event for UFC 200. So let me hear your guys' opinion about the UFC 200. The fight card is stacked top to bottom. And what do you guys think about my thoughts on